Hello everyone, welcome to Blue Heron Hill. I'm Sue and I'm ready to garden. Are you? Not outside. It's about freezing outside right now, about 32 degrees. We've had fairly mild temperatures for the last week and a half. We've had above freezing temperatures both during the day and at night. So it's actually quite a muddy mess, but I could get into the garden. But I know that the freezing temperatures are still going to come. But there's plenty to do in order to prepare for gardening outside. What I like to do is I like to start with my garden journal. And this journal I keep every single year. It follows me out to the garden every single day in the summer. I record all of my stats and data and how my plants are doing and how many plants I put in and where I put them in. Let's see, this year I have a diagram of my garden. This is my main garden, and I also have my secondary garden, the one that's on the other side of the garden if you follow along with me. If you haven't followed along with me, please do subscribe and you will get all sorts of luscious gardening goodness when I start outside. And right now, this is an important one. If you don't keep a gardening journal, you really should. I can't remember from, year to year what I did last year and the fine points of whether those peppers did well in that spot or whether my onions were good over here, the potatoes were good over there. I do remember where I usually have planted things, and of course I want to change the location of some plants. So I have it all in here, what I did last year, what I want to do this year. For instance, you want to rotate some of your plants. So squash plants in particular, if you are hounded by those squash bugs, squash beetles, it's good to plant those plants in another area because those squash bugs are out. Were out at the end of last year before the freeze, laying their eggs in the soil, ready to come up and pounce on your squash plants when they start coming up this year. So you want to plant them in a new location where those squash bugs aren't available to munch on your little seedlings. So I keep a journal. And I usually do it in pencil because I change my mind all the time. But there's lots of good information that I put down. Here I have on this side, I have a whole bunch of data on different varieties, how many of each kind. I did write down at the beginning. Last year, some of these notes indicate, for instance, this says no jalapenos. Why no jalapenos this year? Because I had such a stunning jalapeno crop last year. I dried them, I freeze them, I can them. I have enough to last. And so I don't really need to grow any jalapenos this year. If I have space, I know I have a few seeds left over, and I'll probably start a few. And we'll see if I can't squeeze a few in. But I don't need them for production purposes this year. Anyway, a lot of ideas I have down here on what I want to plant. Another valuable thing that I feel I need to have is this calendar. I don't know if you can see that. That's pretty light behind there. It's my seed starting chart. And this was for last year, 2022. And I have it starting in January and going week by week. And I map out, and of course, here's 2021. I have that. And I make notes on whether to start things earlier, start things later, how many things to start, when I start the seeds indoors, and then when I will transplant them outdoors. This is this year's right here, and you can see right here up at the top, in January, the first weeks in January, I have maintenance. And in maintenance, I inventory my seeds. I plan my garden, like in my gardening journal. I go through all of my seeds. I check the viability of my seeds, and you can do that by wet paper towel, sprinkle a few seeds on it, and see how many germinate. If you sprinkle 10 seeds, only one germinates, that you have a 10% germination rate. And I would suggest buying new seeds instead of trying to get all of those seeds to germinate. They may not, or they may take longer than you expect, but that's a good test to see if your seeds are still good. I gather my equipment. I clean all my pots and all of my seed trays and all of that. It's really good to do that. You don't want anything left over from last year, any diseases or funguses, viruses and things like that that are still on the old soil. I would wash it out with a very diluted solution of bleach, or if you think they just need a vinegar wash, it's an extra precaution so you don't transfer any diseases to your new seedlings. So I've been doing that in this first couple weeks in January, along with, of course, looking through all of my seed catalogs. So after I check some viability of some of those seeds, and here's another interesting thing. Let me back up a little bit. In my gardening journal, I have this handy little chart that talks about seed viability. I will put a link to this, or I will just post a still shot of this. It lists some of the popular vegetable seeds and their shelf life, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 or 4 years. And I find that extremely valuable to know if you have your pepper seeds and you've had these pepper seeds for 3 years. This chart says pepper seeds have a viability of about 2 years. Now you can get germination after that, but I take this, give this a lot of value, and I will go and buy a new packet of seeds if I have still a lot left over from the last couple years. And I would rather not play kind of a roulette with old seeds and start with fresh seeds. Another thing, I'll go back to my gardening journal. Another thing, I have a great set of charts on when to start seeds and when to transplant seeds. I will post a link to this in the description box below. I think this is invaluable. It will go right along with my gardening calendar. Sometimes my area, I'm in 6A, and so my last frost date is the beginning of May, but it can vary every single year because it's just a suggestion. We happen to live on a large body of water. That body of water keeps things a lot cooler, and it moderates our temperatures quite a bit. For instance, in the fall, I have a first frost date that may be a lot later than my surrounding area because this body of water keeps my temperatures a little bit warmer for a little bit longer. Now let's talk seeds. Now before we get into ordering seeds, and I'm going to do a video on what seeds I'm going to order and what I'm going to plant and what I planted last year that didn't work, those that did work, and my tried and true varieties and such. But storing your seeds. Let me talk a little bit about a seed. I have a couple videos, and I'll put a link up here on biology for the gardener. And it's fairly interesting, and it talks about seeds and different parts of seeds and the germination of seeds. I hope you find it interesting and click on this link. But your seed packets are a valuable source of information. This particular one is spaghetti squash. On the back, I don't know if you can see this. Very good. Of course, a lot about this particular variety. They have days to germinate, very important days to germinate. So you aren't sitting around after, 2 weeks wondering why your spaghetti squash seeds haven't come up, because they're supposed to germinate in 5 to 9 days. And if they don't, that probably means their viability or something else is wrong with the seeds. Now another one, days to maturity. This one in particular is 85 days. If you have a growing season that's only 100 days long, you can't have a squash or something like that, the season is, 120 days. It's just not going to mature in time. So what I use in my calendars is when I transplant them, and then days to maturity starts at that transplant date. And I have days on down through September, and it'll tell me when to start looking at the harvests of my crops. So it just kind of gives me an indication. If I can harvest a crop in the end of June or beginning of July, I have a garden bed that's ready to plant with something else. And that's what I like to do, because I always plant a fall crop too, usually some cool weather crops, brassicas, that will mature in the fall. Also lettuces and other cool weather ones, some more kale, some more radishes and different things like that. So that can all be put down here, and it can alert you to the time where it's time to start planting another round of crops. So your seed packet is invaluable. And if it doesn't have that on there, I would find it and write it on your seed packet. This particular one has some very good information that you don't want to lose. Another thing I like to do, which I didn't do on this one, but it hasn't been opened, put a date on it, the year that you buy it. Because I know, according to in my garden planner under my seed viability chart, that squash seeds are good for 4 years. So I don't have to worry about these losing their viability. Now, speaking about viability, seeds need 3 primary things to grow. They need moisture, they need heat, and they need light. Light particularly after germination, maybe no light before germination because they're under the soil. But they need those 3 things. So if you are storing these seeds, you need to get rid of those 3 requirements. They don't need moisture, so they need a dry climate. They don't need heat, so you need someplace that's cool, and then you don't need light, you need someplace dark. So cool, dry, and dark to store your seeds. I use one of these keepers for my seeds. Many people have these. These are, I think they're advertised as photo storage trays. They fit a 4x6 photo in here. I will put a little label on them, and this particular one is for lettuce, and these are greens, non-heading lettuces. And I will keep them in here, and they will go down in my basement where it is cool and dry and dark until I'm ready to start my transplants. These you can look up on Amazon. I think I was looking on Amazon for these, and they were about $30. But I got mine at Michael's. So look at Michael's, Joann's, AC Moore, any place, any craft store. I've seen a lot more. They're becoming increasingly popular, and not just for photos. So now that I've mapped out my game plan right here, and I have my timetable right here, now I'm ready for ordering my seeds. All those seed catalogs have come in. This is just a fraction of the ones that I usually receive. Some I just pitch because I'm not interested in getting a new seed source. But these are some of the tried and true ones, and I have been going through these, so I will continue to go through these. I am going to be ordering, and perhaps the next video I'll sit down with you and I'll talk to you about the different varieties that I'm going to put in my garden this year. So thanks for joining me on this video. If you haven't already, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and comment down below and let me know how you prepare your garden. And are you ready to garden yet? I know we are in our hearts. So until the next time that we can go digging in the dirt, happy gardening. Bye.